Before we begin, tell me one thing in the comments. Which country are you watching this from? Because what you're about to hear feels very different, depending on where you are. My name is Scott. I tell stories quietly, without rushing, the way they actually happen. And tonight, I need you to listen carefully. It didn't start as something scary. That's important to understand. At first, it was just confusing. He lived alone in a small apartment. Nothing unusual. A normal building, thin walls, distant traffic at night. He usually stayed up late, scrolling, watching random videos, waiting for sleep to arrive on its own. That's why he noticed the time. 12:17 a.m. Not because it was important, just because it was still early enough for him to be awake. That's when his phone vibrated, not rang, vibrated once. No sound, no notification preview, just a vibration, unknown number. He stared at the screen for a few seconds, then ignored it. People get spam calls, wrong numbers. It happens. The vibration stopped. He forgot about it almost immediately. The next night, he was brushing his teeth when the phone vibrated again. Same pattern, same single vibration. 12:17 a.m. Unknown number. He frowned, wiped his mouth, and picked it up. He answered without thinking. Hello? There was no voice, no static, no interference, just silence. The kind of silence that feels unfinished, like someone is there but hasn't decided to speak yet. He waited a few seconds, then hung up. He told himself it was probably a broken line or a telemarketer system glitch. That explanation felt reasonable, so he accepted it. On the third night, he didn't even check the time. He just knew. The vibration came while he was sitting on his bed. He looked at the screen. 12:17 a.m. Same number. This time, he didn't say hello. He listened. At first, it sounded like nothing. Then he noticed something subtle. A faint sound, barely there, like fabric moving, or someone shifting their weight. He pulled the phone away from his ear and looked at it again. The call was still connected. He held it back up. The sound continued. Not loud, not dramatic, just present. After about 10 seconds, he ended the call. His heart was beating faster than it should have been, not from fear, from confusion. The next day, he mentioned it to a friend. They laughed. Probably a spam system or a prank call. That explanation felt good, simple, normal. So that night, he tried to ignore it, but at 12:17 a.m., the phone vibrated again. This time, he felt annoyed. He answered immediately. "Stop calling," he said. The line stayed silent. Then something changed. The background sound shifted. It wasn't movement anymore. It was space, a larger space, like the sound you hear when someone is standing in a hallway, not a room. Then he heard it. A soft click, like a door being closed somewhere nearby. He hung up and sat very still, because he was sure of one thing: that sound didn't come from his apartment. At this point, he started doing what most people would do. He checked his call history. The number still didn't show details. No carrier, no location. He blocked it. That night, there was no call. He slept better than he had all week. The following night, his phone vibrated at 12:17 a.m. Blocked numbers don't do that. The screen lit up. Same number, unblocked. He didn't answer. He just watched the vibration continue. It lasted longer this time, much longer, and then it stopped on its own. He sat there in the dark, telling himself one thing over and over. There's a logical explanation, but something had already changed. Not the calls. Him. because for the first time, he didn't feel confused anymore. He felt watched. If this were happening to you, would you answer the next call? Or would you pretend it wasn't happening until you couldn't anymore? By the next day, he tried to live normally. That sounds simple, but it isn't. When something small feels wrong, your brain keeps returning to it, even when you don't want it to. At work, he caught himself checking the time, not often, just enough to notice. 12:17 p.m., nothing happened. That should have been reassuring. Instead, it made him uneasy. That evening, he decided to do something deliberate. If the call came again, he would answer it in a normal way. No fear, no silence, just control. At 12:17 a.m., the phone vibrated once. He picked it up immediately. "Hello," he said, keeping his voice steady. Nothing. The silence felt different this time, not empty, occupied. He waited, then he spoke again. "You've got the wrong number." The background sound returned, faint, controlled, like someone standing still, trying not to move. He hung up. After that, he started noticing things he had never paid attention to before. Sounds, the building settling, pipes knocking, footsteps in the hallway. Normal sounds, harmless sounds. But now, each one made him pause, not because they were loud, because they felt timed. The next night, he didn't wait in bed. He stayed in the living room, lights on, television playing quietly. At 12:17 a.m., the phone vibrated. He answered immediately. This time, the sound was clearer. Not movement, not breathing, distance. Like the microphone was picking up a much larger space. Then he heard it. A low, brief sound, almost like someone exhaling through their nose, close to the phone. He froze. The sound stopped. Then, faintly, a second noise, a chair scraping against the floor. He ended the call and stayed perfectly still, because the sound he just heard was identical to the chair in his own apartment. He checked. Nothing had moved. The chair was still tucked under the table. That made it worse. The following morning, he played the call recordings back. Not on his phone, on headphones, carefully. The first call sounded normal. The second one didn't. There was a pattern, a rhythm in the silence, pauses that repeated, as if someone was listening between sounds. That night, he didn't answer. The phone vibrated at 12:17, then again at 12:18, then 12:19. It had never done that before. He watched the screen light up again and again. Finally, it stopped. A few seconds later, his voicemail notification appeared. One new message, no timestamp, just a duration. 6 seconds. He didn't play it. If this were you, would you listen to that voicemail? Or would you leave it untouched, hoping that ignoring it might still give you control? Tell me in the comments. He didn't listen to it either. Instead, he turned the phone face down and tried to sleep. That night, he dreamed of standing in his apartment, holding the phone to his ear. In the dream, the call was silent, but behind him, someone was speaking softly, not to him, into the phone. He woke up at exactly 12:17 a.m. The phone was vibrating, but this time it wasn't on the table. It was in his hand, unlocked, mid-call. And the sound on the other end was no longer distant. It was breathing right against the microphone. By the third week, he stopped telling himself this was nothing. Not because it got louder, not because it got dramatic, but because it started reacting. He didn't answer the next call. Sent 12:17 a.m. Vibration. Silence. He watched the screen until it went dark. 5 seconds later, the phone vibrated again. Same number. He answered. The sound was already there, not starting, not arriving, waiting. That's when he realized something. The calls weren't following a script. They were adjusting. The next day, he did something small, something controlled. He moved a chair from the living room into the bedroom. He didn't tell anyone, didn't make a note of it, didn't even think much about it. That night at 12:17, the phone vibrated. He answered. Silence. Then a soft scrape. Slow, careful. A chair being dragged. He held his breath. The sound stopped. The call ended. He didn't sleep. The next night, he moved something else. A lamp. From the bedroom to the hallway. At 12:17, the phone vibrated. He answered. Nothing. Then a faint click. Light. A soft electrical hum. The sound of a lamp turning on. Not any lamp. That lamp. He stopped testing after that, because testing meant confirmation, and confirmation meant there was no way back. On the following night, the phone rang early, 12:14 a.m. He didn't answer. It rang again, 12:15. Again, 12:16. By the time it reached 12:17, his hands were shaking. He answered. For the first time, there was a voice, not speaking, counting. 14, 15, 16. Then silence. The call ended. He checked the apartment. Everything was where it should be, but something felt wrong, smaller, like the space itself had changed. That night, he finally played the voicemail. 6 seconds, that was all. It wasn't a message, it was a recording. His apartment at night. He could hear the refrigerator hum, distant traffic, the subtle noise of the building breathing. Then, at the very end, a sound he didn't recognize, a slow inhale, right behind the microphone. He dropped the phone. After that, the calls stopped. No vibration, no missed calls, no voicemails. For 3 nights, nothing happened. He almost convinced himself it was over. On the 4th night, his phone rang at 12:17, but this time, it wasn't an unknown number. The screen showed a name. His own. He answered. There was no silence, just one sentence, spoken calmly, clearly. We're already past the part where you hang up. The line went dead. If your phone showed your own name calling you, would you answer again? Because now, he knows something for certain. The calls aren't listening anymore. They're learning. And the next one won't just describe his apartment, it will describe where he's going next. After that call, he didn't stay, not another minute. He packed a bag with whatever was closest. Phone charger, wallet, keys. He didn't check the apartment, didn't turn off the lights, didn't lock the door. He just left. He drove without a destination, out of the city, onto darker roads, the kind where streetlights disappear and the night feels wider. The phone stayed silent. That almost felt worse. He stopped at a motel just before dawn, paid in cash, didn't give his real name. The room smelled like cleaning chemicals and old fabric. It felt anonymous, safe. He placed the phone on the desk, face down, and went to sleep. He woke up in the afternoon. The phone was still there, no missed calls, no voicemails. For the first time in weeks, his chest loosened. He told himself something simple. It was the apartment. Bad wiring, interference, stress. Places can feel wrong. That doesn't mean they are. That night, he left the television on, volume low, lights off. He didn't check the time. He didn't need to. At 12:17 a.m., the phone vibrated. Once. He didn't answer. The vibration stopped. A few seconds passed. Then the phone vibrated again. He picked it up slowly. The screen was already unlocked. The call was already connected. There was no silence, no background sound, just his own voice, not recorded, not distorted, speaking live. You always wait too long in unfamiliar rooms. His throat tightened. The voice continued. You moved the chair closer to the door. You left the bathroom light on. You didn't lock the window. Each sentence landed carefully, accurately. He whispered, "Where are you?" The answer came immediately. "Not where you think." The call ended. The motel room felt smaller, the air heavier. He stood up, heart pounding, and checked the door. Locked. The window. Closed. Everything exactly as it should be. He grabbed his bag and left again. This time, he didn't drive far, just enough to reach a crowded place. A late-night diner, bright lights, people, noise. He sat where he could see everyone. The phone stayed on the table, face up. He wanted witnesses. At 12:17, the phone vibrated. People around him didn't react. He answered. The sound on the other end wasn't a room. It was traffic, engines, footsteps, voices, the same sounds around him. Then a sentence, spoken softly. "You feel safer when you can see exits." He stood up so fast the chair fell backward. No one looked at him. The call ended. He went to the restroom and stared at his reflection. He looked normal, tired, pale, not hunted. That made it worse. When he returned to the table, the phone was gone. Panic hit instantly. Then he saw it, still there, just turned over, screen lit, a new voicemail. Timestamped 5 minutes in the future. He didn't listen. He didn't need to, because the text preview was enough. It read, "We're not calling the places anymore. We're calling you. If you were him, would you keep running? Or would you finally stop and listen to what it wants? Because now he understands the truth. The calls don't follow locations. They follow decisions. And the next one will come when he thinks he's finally alone." After that message, he stopped running. Not because he felt safe, because he finally understood something important. Running was still a decision, and the calls followed decisions. He returned to the motel room before sunrise, sat on the edge of the bed, placed the phone on the table, face up. He didn't try to sleep, didn't turn on the television, didn't distract himself. For the first time, he waited on purpose. At 12:17 a.m., the phone vibrated once. He answered immediately. There was no sound at first, then a voice. Not his, not unfamiliar either. Calm, patient. "You've been trying to avoid the point," it said. He swallowed. "What do you want?" he asked. A pause, then the answer. "We want you to stop pretending you don't hear patterns." The voice continued. "You noticed the timing. You noticed the repetition. You noticed the changes." It spoke like this had always been expected. Most people ignore patterns. They explain them away. They stay comfortable. His hands trembled. "So why me?" Another pause. Longer this time. "Because you listened." The room felt colder. The voice went on. "We don't choose people at random. We choose people who notice, people who can't stop noticing." His mind raced. "So this is happening to others?" "Yes." "How many?" Silence, then. "Enough." He leaned forward. "What happens if I stop answering?" The reply was immediate. "You already know the answer." The phone screen changed, not the call. The display, a list, dates, times, all marked 12:17. Some were crossed out, some weren't. He recognized one of the dates. It was tomorrow night. His voice cracked. "What happens then?" The voice softened. Then you hear the full message. And if I don't? Another pause. This one felt final. Then someone else does. The call ended. The phone didn't vibrate again. It didn't need to. That night, he didn't sleep. He watched the clock, minute by minute. When it finally reached 12:17, nothing happened. No vibration, no sound. He almost laughed, almost believed he was free. Then his phone lit up. No incoming call, no voicemail. Just a notification, one line of text. Listening is a choice. If this were you, would you answer tomorrow's call, or would you let someone else hear what was meant for you? Tell me in the comments. And if you want to hear what the full message really says, subscribe, because the next part doesn't ask whether the call is dangerous. It proves what happens when someone finally listens.